remember going into that first session with you, really not knowing what to expect because I had only had internal vaginal work done in Thailand. And not gonna lie, it was kind of intense. And then you proceeded to walk me through what still to this day stands out as one of the most body-led, like my body leading the session, your body listening to my body, sessions that I've ever experienced.
It's just really in that whole inner pelvic bowl. There's so many muscles there, and just like anywhere in our body, we hold tension. I call it Pandora's box. When I go in there and I follow the fascia, and it will just start to let go. It's our sacral and root chakra there, where we hold our origin stories. We hold our truth about whether we trust the world, whether we feel safe, our money stories. So a lot is in that location and in our sense of how we control the world. When it finally released, I had like a whole healing crisis. I couldn't really walk very well for a couple of days, but then it melted all this tension that was stored.
We aren't just one physical being, one emotional being, one energetic being. Like things in the body don't just happen for no reason. Your inner experience is mirrored on the outer. Welcome to the Womben Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Usha Nandi, and you're in the right place if you're looking to heal yourself as a woman, not just for you, but for all the women who came before you and all the women who will come after. Learn ancient practices, hear vulnerable stories that remind you you're not alone and you're definitely not crazy, and tap into the bravery that it takes to be an undomesticated woman in the world we live in today. All of my friends kept telling me that I should meet this woman, Shannon Tinder. And as a true Aquarius rising, I was like, if you tell me to do something, I'm not going to do it. So for years, I spent rebelling, not meeting with Shannon, who I was told was an amazing holistic pelvic care practitioner, an incredible body worker, energy worker. And I was like, I'm not sure if I want new friends right now. Thank you. And it wasn't until I was really, really struggling postpartum that I went to see Shannon for a session. And that session where we did intravaginal work, so she actually inserted her fingers inside of me and helped move tension and emotion that was in my pelvic diaphragm out and through my body, that I really felt held. I felt held. And for those of you who have been through postpartum, if you're listening to this and you've been through postpartum, you know how tender of a time that was. But the work that Shannon does isn't just for postpartum mothers and women. It's for anyone looking to reclaim the energy of their womb. Anyone who's looking to move through and digest old experiences that can be held there, whether they're sexual boundary violations, whether it's memories from this life or past. This interview with Shannon takes us deep into Pandora's box, as Shannon says, of what can be held in the pelvis and the womb. I don't recommend listening to this with children around. And I want you to know as a content warning that Shannon does talk about healing sexual violations with clients from the perspective of the healing potential that can happen when we work through the emotion, the energy, and the memory held within the tissues of the pelvis. I'm so excited for you to meet one of my dearest friends. And I want you to know that if this interests you, you're going to love Liberated Womb, which is my brand new offering that is a collation of my life's work, every single womb healing course I have ever created in one place. We have 3 pathways for you if you want to be a cycle breaker to heal your lineage through your body. If you want to be a kitchen witch, that wise woman who knows everything about medicinal plants and spices and can help herself and the people that she loves. And for the cyclical women who are ready to heal through irregular periods, painful cycles, and build robust fertility by slowing down, stop forcing, and start flowing and living in alignment with your body. These 3 unique pathways are all inside Liberated Womb, which is like the village you've always wanted, that 300-acre property that you want to buy with your friends, but just haven't yet. That's what Liberated Womb is, but it's online with women all over the world. And just right now, I am offering a Founders Club discount. So you get to found this brand new program with me and get 50% off the course tuition. I'm so excited. The doors are open right now and they're closing soon. So if you're interested in pelvic healing, you're absolutely going to love Liberated Womb. I'll put the link in the show notes so you can check it out. Shannon, my dear friend, thank you so much for coming on the Womben Wellness Podcast with me.
Thank you so much, Usha. I'm so grateful to be here.
I'm so excited to be here with you. Okay, I'm going to turn a little bit closer to you.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. So the first time I saw you, I was postpartum with my daughter. I think I was like 4 or 5 months postpartum. And I kept hearing all these whispers around where we live. It was like, you should go see Shannon. You should see Shannon. Like you and Shannon would get along. And in pure Aquarius rising style, I was like, don't tell me what to do. And I was like, I'm not going to see anyone that anyone tells me what to do. And then it became clear after the birth of my daughter that our paths were supposed to align. And I remember going into that first session with you, really not knowing what to expect because I had only had internal vaginal work done in Thailand at Montauk Chia Center. And not gonna lie, it was kind of intense. It definitely wasn't slow or really like consent based. It was just kind of like an older woman like going at my tissues. And I was like, I'm not really sure I want to do that again. And so I came and worked with you, and I think we sat down and we both cried at first in sharing my breastfeeding story. And then you proceeded to walk me through what still to this day stands out as one of the most body led, like my body leading the session, your body listening to my body sessions that I've ever experienced. And I still remember because, you know, I like to achieve. I've still got that like Pitta Leo. And I remember you going inside of my vagina and feeling around and you're like, oh, your pelvic diaphragm feels really good for postpartum. And I was like, that's right. Womb work works. And so I want to hear in your words, like, what is internal work? Because so many women listening are probably like, what the heck is that? And why would someone need that? And what kind of benefits could that offer? So can we hear from you in your own words?
Absolutely. Yeah. So on a very simple approach and to it, it is fascial unwinding in the vaginal tissue and sometimes in the labia and sometimes around the cervix, but it's just really in that whole inner pelvic bowl. There's so many muscles there. And just like anywhere in our body, we hold tension. And so I am not focused whatsoever on trying to achieve orgasm for women or looking for the pleasure pathways. This is what you do before those pleasure pathways so that those can be fully open. It's like, do you ever experience jaw tension?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, right. Those are reciprocal membrane areas. So if you have jaw tension, you probably have tension in your yoni. And so I call it Pandora's box. When I go in there and I follow the fascia and it will just start to let go. And then in there, you know, in all of our tissue, we hold stories. We hold every experience of our life, and there's a charge to that. And so with the client's breath and presence and me there with a gentle, grounded touch, everything starts to just flow and unwind. And so the Pandora's box pieces, it all comes out and we can't really ever put it back in. The first internal recession that I received, I had so much energy afterward. I was just like running around like crazy. I went dancing and then I was hooked.
I love that. And, you know, I was thinking as you talk, it's so rare in the US, especially, to get sessions that are focused on the whole body because our culture has labeled certain parts of the body to be sexual. So like, for example, if I'm in India and I get a full body massage from a woman, usually it's going to include my belly. It's going to include my breasts. But in the US, we seem to be afraid of these areas, including the yoni. And so that kind of reprogramming of there's tissue there as well that needs to be unwound, that needs attention, that needs presence. That's not just there for your intimate partner to touch or for your pleasure. That is also holding some emotions, holding some stories. And for everyone listening, this might be kind of a new concept for some people that your tissues can hold your experiences. And yet I mean, even me, I have this experience after a decade plus of embodiment practices and pathways like yoga or somatics, I have this experience where when I'm really stressed or when I've gone through a difficult moment in my life and challenge, I then get into my body and I'm like moving my body or feeling my body. And I'm like, oh yeah, everything that I just went through is being held right here in my tissues. So what are some examples of stories of women who have worked with you and what has come up in their Pandora's box from starting to work with their tissues?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've been doing this work almost 10 years now, and I've seen so many stories, but one that really sticks out to me recently, this woman, she was young in her early 20s, new mom, child's about almost 2. And she'd come to me for prolapse because she'd been working just way too strenuously after birth, thinking like, I'm strong, I can do this all. And so there was some bladder prolapse mostly happening and some other maybe hernias. And after about the 3rd session, over about 8 months, she took it really slow. As a new mom, we don't have a lot of time, but it worked progressively. And then she came in the 4th time and was like, oh my God, Shannon, I cannot believe what happened since I saw you last. It had been about a month between those two. All of these memories started to just flood in for her through dream time, through wake time of being raped at 8. And she had completely blocked out most of her childhood. She had no idea this had happened. And then she knew who it was. She confirmed it that that person had stayed with her family. There was the whole story there. But what it did was validate for her every experience of her life of being hypersensitive, OCD, nervous system on alert, that everyone told her, you're crazy. Why? Like, there's no reason you shouldn't be that way. And as those memories came forth, it wasn't scary for her. It was sad. She grieved, but she also softened. And so when she came to me after that month, she was like a completely different body. And the response of when we did the internal work, there was a lot of kind of clenching and flinching, was not really even there. And she just cried and cried. And so it just allowed this new layer for her to come forth. And fortunately, she has a supportive partner, and I offer some really amazing techniques for partners to do. I call it the sacred yoni hold, where they hold under the sacrum and over the pubic bone. And the receiving person is just straddling over, and the giver is just holding, and the receiver just gets to breathe and rewire safety. And so, the biggest thing that I've seen through all of the stories is rewiring safety to those pathways that go into the vagina, to the yoni, to the whole pelvic bowl.
And that's so powerful because, I was thinking just now about the importance of believing your body. And as women, we're kind of stuck in this medical system that doesn't believe us. We go into the doctor about painful periods, or, it takes 10 plus years for most women to get an endometriosis diagnosis that's accurate. It's like, we're in this system that wasn't created with our health or our thrival in mind. And so for me, what's interesting is I've done a lot of intravaginal work on my own. Like, I love exploring my tissues, feeling how they change throughout my cycle, etc. But there's something different when you're held by someone else. When you have a layer of support that's there, it allows your body to unravel and also unshame because you're being witnessed and supported by someone else. And so I've had that experience with you. And I'm just curious, like you mentioned postpartum women, but what are some other kinds of experiences, health challenges? What are some other stages in life that women might benefit from pelvic work with you?
I'd love to share my first session of receiving in training with Tammy Kent in holistic pelvic care. I happened to be in a triad, the one triad of the group, and the 2 women giving were doctors. They'd done a lot of internal sessions for people in other ways. And I got on the table first to receive. And of course, my period drops right at that moment. So there's like shame of getting like such vulnerable, deep work while bleeding. And they just gently came forward. The one was doing the internal And as she moved inside my body, these ginormous, icky waves of shame just like washed over me. I'd never experienced anything like it. And I thought about being younger, like really little, and just being super experimental with friends and curious, just very sexually curious little child, and how that's natural. But all of those tucked away feelings of shame around that just washed like this giant shower. And it went so quick too. And then I've never had it since. And so what I like to like help clients realize is, these things that feel stuck, or that we have to bury away, they can be felt really quickly in the right setting. I had someone come recently, and she was like 15 years out from hysterectomy. She had this sudden pain in the uterine site, and she couldn't figure it out. Her doctors were like, I don't know. But she'd also been through a lot of trauma in her family recently, a death of a loved one. And somebody had suggested to see me. And it was a completely new idea to her. But sex had started to become painful too. And so I went in, and there was definitely like a suture site from the hysterectomy that I could feel scar tissue with. But then there was this deeper layer below it where I'm an intuitive. All my clairs are pretty on. And so when I'm with people, I'm either feeling it or I can see images. And I kept like seeing this gnarly male energy, like kind of invasive, and then getting these similar waves of shame. And so I know that shame energy and from that first time, my experience. And, it kept happening. So I spoke it to her. And she said, oh yeah, I was molested when I was little. And it was a family member. And then as soon as we kind of speak to it and bring it to the light, it starts to move. And then it just shifted, and we went back to that site where there'd been the pain, and it was gone. So many stories like that of it can just quickly shift. The story is always there, but the charge can go away.
I love that. And, that's what being like a cycle breaker and undomesticated woman is really about. It's like, instead of turning away from the pain, listening to the pain as a messenger. And I always teach that pain means pay attention inside now. But I know that there's probably some resistance and some trepidation, like something that comes up a lot with graduates of my programs is they're like, I don't really want to go there, right? It's like, even you use like Pandora's box. It's like, who wants to open Pandora's box? You're not supposed to open it. You're supposed to keep it closed. And so a question I get a lot is like, do I have to open that back up? And I think a lot of women have been in years of talk therapy, have journaled about it, have tried to like change themselves, self-improve to the point of being really tired. And so what's the difference between getting somatic support with you versus just talking about it? Or what would you say to women who just don't want to go there, but know that there are things that are held in their body?
Yeah. I can always kind of get a sense if I should be talking story to, and I used to talk a lot more story with clients, but these days I don't as much. And it might just name like a little bit of an emotion or, a sense. And, if somebody is uncomfortable and been through plenty of talk, we just go into the current feeling. That's what somatic work is. And you don't have to bring up the story whatsoever. But if whatever sensation is presenting and we go there and we meet it, it will feel resonated with, and then it'll integrate. And so it can be that easy. We don't have to delve. And like talk therapy keeps it up here in the mental realm. Like I can never imagine doing anything but somatic embodied work because it gets to the root. And so, if there's like a tight sacrum, right? Like just holding all that energy, and people get back pain, low back pain. It's like, how do you feel supported in life? And we just like sit with that question, and it can be that easy. And then they can unwind it, and things can come up, in the days and weeks afterward. But just bringing awareness with me holding the sacrum, then breathing into it, And just asking that question can just soften as well.
And I love that because, I have like a mind that is always very curious and is like looking for the reason. And so I know when I first started getting into my body, like when I was 19 years old, everything that would come up, I would want to know why. It's like, oh, this pain is here. Oh, this shame is here. What does that mean? What happened when I was a kid that made that happen? And I think a lot of people can get stuck in that obsessive loop of like, why? What happened to me? What is the trauma? What is the experience? And it's so nice to know that we don't necessarily even have to go into that or recall the memory. Just by being with the body, it can also process and move through.
Yes. Yeah. And even with just sound, like sometimes when I'm holding on the body for women and I have them just tone and send sound there, we are our own tuning fork. It will just shift just like that. And so it's like a little child who's like, mommy, 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 mommy. What's ever going on inside of our body is like screaming. And then when we listen, it just is like, oh, okay, you heard me. And that's all. Yeah, the pain is. I've never heard that acronym. I really like that.
Yeah, we gotta listen, and it's hard to listen. I mean, we don't want to meet our pain. It's like we want to recoil from it. We want to run away from it, and so it's like a really big shift, very brave shift to turn towards ourselves. And you mentioned something. I want to back up a little bit. You mentioned a woman who was in postpartum who was experiencing prolapse, and postpartum is one of my areas of passion because I struggled so much during my postpartum. That's when you and I met. And so I think a lot of modern women don't really know how they should care for their pelvis, how they could care for their womb, and the potential of care that they could receive from themselves, from a partner, from another. So what are some recommendations for women in postpartum to care for themselves, to keep that vitality in their uterus, that vitality in their pelvic bowl?
Yeah. Number one thing, rest, 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 rest. Do not go running. Do not start a strenuous exercise. Nap when your baby naps. Return all the warmth to that bowl, pelvic bowl. They call it the ring of fire when we open the final opening for that baby to come out.
Oh, yes.
And whether that's through vaginally or that ring of fire through a cesarean opening, it's all the heat going out and the fire goes with that birth. And so indigenous cultures are very aware of this. All of their practices are like bringing the warmth back to the body. Wear a hat, wear a wrap around your womb and kidneys, wear socks, keep the uterus warm, because that's going to be the best thing to help tonify it and go back into a healthy position and shape. Not allow prolapse is a condition of cold and constitutional cold, and it's dropping out of the body because there's not this like container. I like to think of the pelvic bowl, especially postpartum, as like a willow basket, because I used to make baskets, and I imagine these great giant arms coming in and collecting all the pieces back together that kind of blew out with birth. And we mend it and we hold it and we patch it in with some wool and we make it really warm. And so yoni steaming is one of my favorite practices. That's my friend talked me into it when I was so kind of like, oh, that's so much effort. I finally did it because she's like, it's like a warm cup of tea for your yoni. I was like, okay. And she was so right. And so yoni steaming, the sitz baths, herbal compresses. I personally give sessions postpartum that are much more nurturing. I don't stir up trauma. Like, we don't go to those places. And even if somebody's like, I want to deal with like my trauma from childhood, I'm like, let's do this a very nurturing one. Because with sound and castor oil packs or moxa, we bring all the warmth back in. It's kind of like a mother roasting. And then, yeah, it's just, your own hands on your body, your own hands like over your womb, bringing warmth there is wonderful practice every day. Giving gratitude for this place that grew a baby. Like, that's a pretty amazing miracle. And letting your community support you if they're around for that, your partner. We don't have to do it all. And it's really like the best time to learn that.
I love that. And, whenever we talk about postpartum, like postpartum for me was this like complete, I mean, there's no other word for it, psychedelic, shamanic. I don't know. It's like such an altered state of consciousness. And I have so much grief, even still after years of moving it through, because it's really easy to care for yourself when everything is going right postpartum. But then if you have health challenges, if your child has health challenges, if something's happening externally, what I notice is that as women, most of us, especially you and I are both Enneagram 2s, it's like something happens, I forget about myself right away. It's like I start focusing on the other. And for me, my daughter was such the focus that I just, about 4 weeks postpartum, let go of all of my practices. And I think I really paid for it. And so, not just what women can do for themselves, but also I want all women to hear how vital those layers of support are. Like, I went to see you for sessions. I was pregnant during COVID. So I basically, the only women I saw were like my chiropractor, my midwife. I got to see you postpartum. And so also having those women around who can hold you, because we're supposed to be in the village. We're supposed to be together. And as a new mom, it's like, I mean, I was like blown into 1,000 pieces. My sense of self was annihilated, and I needed women to come and help put that back together. And you were one of those women for me, Shannon. Thank you. So I want to go back to like this idea of pain during sex and just how normalized in our culture pain during sex is, but just pain in the pelvis in general. Like, so many women think, I have a pelvis, like I have a womb, I have a uterus, I have a vulva. This is just a part of it that I have to suffer. So from your perspective, is pain during sex normal? What can women do to work through it, to change that? And what about pelvic pain? Like, what would you say to that? I know there's a lot of questions in there.
There's a lot, and there's a lot to the answer. Pelvic pain can show up for many reasons. First, stored trauma is kind of a number one reason. Also, a chemical imbalance. There can be just maybe something off in one's diet, and it's showing up as buildup in lactic acid crystals or oxalates in the tissue. Oxalates are actually a really big reason behind pain.
Tell us more about oxalates, because not everyone's going to know. Yes. I know you're the oxalate queen. You're like, I look out for those.
I've had to learn myself, having dealt with interstitial cystitis, which is kind of a general name for pain around the bladder that they can't really diagnose. And it's in my family. My dad and brother get kidney stones. That's how it shows up for them. So oxalates are mostly a plant group, spinach, blueberries, beets, chards. Those are some of the top ones. You can look up what it is. Don't go no ox diet. You want to go low oxalate diet, and we want some. I keep chocolate in mine.
Oh, yes.
Never let go of that. But the oxalates can build up and create this pain in the tissue. And so that's what was happening to me for years. And even celery is kind of like on the middle of that. But I was like hella juicing celery and putting it in every bone broth I made, until finally one day I just had this, like, it was like an immediate reaction. And I knew that I had to take that out of my diet. But then when I realized about oxalates and took it out, that pain around my bladder went away. It was just like a dull pain. So that was not like a pain with sex, but it was annoying, and it felt just this constant pressure. But it can also show up in the labia. And so just, first looking at diet, maybe there's things to eliminate. Another thing is like the crystal buildup. Sometimes it can just be in the labia and the tissues, and we just massage it out. Like, I've had much success for myself and others where there's just kind of this rubbing, like a raw rubbing, a little bit sharp, and you just massage, kind of like do this like rolling out of the labia with some nice sesame oil or coconut oil, and it can go away. Those are the easier things to solve. Pain with sex, no, we don't want that. It could be that the cervix is feeling a little more sensitive. So sometimes that happens. We have to find a different position. But in general, if there's pain with sex, there's something to look at. And what I've noticed is it can often show up when we have a safe partner because we finally feel safe enough to let whatever is stored in the tissue come to the surface because our body knows like, oh, I'm in a good container. This can be held. And so this is where it takes emotional maturity and connection on with both each other as partners. And then somebody, like myself to support and guide this journey. Because like that position I told you, the sacred yoni hold, my rule around that is no sex afterward. And so, what are we always doing, especially as women, I feel like, and we want to just please our partners and we often give away sex when we don't want to.
Oh yeah. And how many massages have you received that like end in that?
No. Yes. And so this, time to just allow for the woman to be held and to just know that her body doesn't have to be given away for something else. It rewires so much. So pain, I really can be solved, with just the partner being accepting of maybe it's not about them for a little while. And, if this pain is presenting, there's an opportunity to slow down and just be with it. Another experience that I had with receiving a session, I didn't have any pain in my labia. And then I went to receive this tantric massage. And all of a sudden, all this pain showed up in my left labia. And it just showed up for that session because it wanted to be met and move. And I just held it. They held it with me. That's all we did. And I sounded, made all sorts of breaths and sounds. And then it was gone. And so, not every pain is that simple to solve. Sometimes it means leaving that partner, like recurrent UTIs or recurrent infections. Like maybe that partner is not safe. And so that's something to listen to. There's, like you said, what was it?
Pay attention inside now.
Pay attention inside now. That is exactly it. And, we can ask any part of our body to talk to us. It's body channeling. And the parts of us are really excited to talk if we slow down and listen. And what it takes is just slowing down, breathing, getting quiet. I love this heart-womb coherence breath. One hand over the womb, one hand over the heart. And you breathe back and forth in each place. So I start with that for 5 minutes. I do that before my workday every time. This is what I tell almost every single client to do, at least this practice. And then beyond that, you can then have a journal there and say, okay, pain or yoni or heart or knee, whatever part, what would you like to say? And then you just get quiet and you let those words come through. It might feel weird at first, or you might think that it's your mind. But if you really slow down and get quiet enough and just allow, it is the part speaking.
I love that. There's so much there, Shannon. I'm like, ooh, going to that. I really resonate with this like thing of women giving away sex even when we don't want to please our partner, and how animal and primal it is for us as women to feel like our survival. One of my teachers, Allison Armstrong, she says like, as women, we are so oriented towards pleasing our partner because we think that our survival is dependent upon pleasing them. And one of the things that I learned is that it takes 30 to 40 minutes for women's tissue to become fully engorged and aroused. And when I learned that, I was like, oh my God, I've been living my life wrong. Like everything is wrong because this has not been honored, and not been honored by me, not been honored like by past partners. And whereas it takes men 1 to 2 minutes to reach full arousal. So the difference in our tissues, and just on the pain during sex topic, is like, I have pain during sex when insertion is too soon. And that's like a pay attention inside now moment of my body being very clear. No. And it's like when we reach full arousal, the uterus actually pulls the cervix slightly up so that deeper penetration can be experienced. But it's like, I think a lot of women aren't giving themselves enough time. As you said, we're not slowing down. We're not honoring what our tissues actually need to become fully engorged, fully juicy, and fully ready. And we live in a culture that thinks that intimacy is penis and vagina sex. It means penetration. And so I'm thinking about all the women, myself included, where we're just grinding. It's like we're working, we're mothering, we've got so much on our plate, both actually in our responsibilities and also psychically, of all these different things that we're tracking for ourselves, for our work, for our families, for the world. And I know that the women listening, like undomesticated women, cycle breakers, kitchen witches, like we're trying to use our bodies as a portal to heal backwards and forwards. And sometimes that can be a lot of pressure. And so if we're stuck in that, like constantly bracing, constantly grinding, constantly doing and achieving, like so many women think we have to in order to survive, what does that do to our tissues?
I can just feel it as you're saying that. I'm like, ah. And imagining the archetype that comes in with that. It's a hypertensive yoni. And she's like, and we've got this root lock on life, right? And there's a literal root lock there, whether that shows up in the yoni or the rectum. You know, they don't say tight ass for nothing. That phrase comes from somewhere. And so what I see is most women's yonis are this hypervigilant state. And then they might, after that's been for a long time, it's like if you're like holding a contraction and contracted muscle forever, it's just kind of going to get weak. And so then we lose muscle tone, and then we start to have the prolapse issues and the bladder issues, and everything kind of gets desensitized because we're not paying attention to it, right? It's just on this hypervigilance, ignore space. And yeah, maybe you're having sex, but it's different. It's your, day to day, how you are. It's not like what you get into for sex. And it can show up as like the spasticity that I see sometimes. It's like just kind of, the yoni just spasms constantly. It's like that nervous system doesn't know how to relax. And so I like to think of the pelvic bowl, and it is a bowl. It's a hammock. There is no floor. Please say hammock.
Yes, no pelvic floor here.
I like to think of it as a jellyfish. This is what I tell people. Like, so you just imagine this jellyfish in the bottom of your pelvic bowl, and I think of a jellyfish as soft, but it's strong. It's a strong muscle, right? And so I'm just kind of like, and get into this like jellyfish slashing around in the base of my yoni.
So just imagine a jellyfish in your pelvis. Everyone's like, yes, okay, Shannon, sure.
But yeah, we can have a lot of tension. I remember there was years where I'd wake up with the tightest tension in my coccyx and sacrum, and I call it making diamonds in my sleep. I'm like doing some hard,
that
pressurized shit.
Yeah, you're like, I'm gonna get rich on these diamonds. Yeah, that, I'm hearing about this hypervigilance, and it's like that constant tracking. And I so resonate with that, especially since becoming a mom and losing so much blood in birth and just feeling like so much of my vitality, my well of vitality that I would draw from was depleted and dried out, that I've noticed my system is a lot more on edge since that experience. And if women who are listening are like, oh my God, I am hypervigilant, like I'm stressed out, I'm constantly tracking, I'm constantly worried, I'm thinking about the past, I'm trying to make sure the past doesn't happen in the future, I'm trying not to pass on patterns. Like, women who listen to this podcast care a lot about themselves, a lot about their families, a lot about their communities, their loved ones, and the world. And so in a world that was not created with women's safety in mind, that does not prioritize legislature, spaces for women's safety, how do we as women cultivate that safety in our bodies and our tissues when we're constantly getting danger signs from the outside world, because that's something that I think is really hard for women listening. It's like, yeah, of course you're hypervigilant. It's not safe for a lot of us out there, you know? And so how do we kind of flip the script and cultivate that safety from within and then go out into the world and maintain that sense of being in our body?
We hide.
We buy lands. We buy 300 acres and we go out into the forest.
We run away from society.
Exactly.
I mean, really, that's kind of the answer. But we have to just find that resilience within. And it's a daily practice. It's, retreats are nice and wonderful and nourishing, but it's really the daily, day-to-day. Take some time for yourself. It is the most important thing we can do for ourselves. I don't care if it's, in the car while you're waiting to pick up your kid, or, getting up a little earlier, or doing it after, before the kids go to bed, or just make it your number one priority. I cannot say that enough. I am 48. Kids are, teens, and I wish I'd made this a priority sooner, because it is for me now. And so it can take as little as 5 minutes, but it's, do that heart womb coherence breath. See practitioners. It takes a village to raise a human our whole lives. We can't do it all by ourselves. So there's practices that we can do every day, but then we need regular maintenance work of energy attunement sessions or somatic body work. Going on walks. My favorite thing is resetting in nature. Like, that'll do it. Go be next to a tree and some water. Take your kid to the park while you do it. And then we, call in two birds with one song. So really figure out how to enjoy life in every moment, and stop and smell the roses. That's one of my favoriteest phrases, because it really is so true. Like, if we can stop and appreciate the beauty around us, it's okay. Anything else out there is okay. And it's not going to penetrate this, resilience we build within by being present.
I feel like I'm looking at my future self. You're 18 years ahead of me, and we're both Enneagram 2s. If anyone listening doesn't know the Enneagram, highly recommend it. It informs my life. It informs how I interact with people. It informs my business. And Enneagram 2 is the helper. So we orient to the other first. And I've watched you, being friends with you for years now, many years now, go through this shift, especially since going through perimenopause, of as your hormones have changed, you've started orienting to yourself a lot more. So how has that shifted? As estrogen has started to change, how has your experience of giving so much had to change along with it?
Yeah, well, for me, it was this really drastic shift 2 years ago, where all of a sudden my yoni literally just went. I mean, it was just walking around with these chafing lips, and I was like, what the? And when that happened, I was really feeling outward in my life at that point. I just went so internal, and there was nothing I could do. It literally just drew me inside. And things just came up that I could not pay attention to. And so through some wonderful, oils and hyaluronic acid suppositories, that all shifted, and some nice estradiol. But really, I don't know, it's like everything in me dried up. I couldn't give any more to my family. I couldn't give anything else outward. And I just wanted to be alone. And then a year ago, I went on my first trip for 3 weeks. That I had never been alone for 3 weeks in 19 years at that point.
Oh my gosh.
And I went to Crete, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I came home and all of that resentment and bitterness that kind of builds through just doing the grind was gone. And so I realized, I've got to figure this out for myself every day. And I'm the priority. They can take care of themselves. I wish I'd learned this a lot earlier ago, but it is what it is. And I'm, cruising through perimenopause now
Mm.
because I'm taking care of me.
And I love that clear message from your body is like your tissues dried up. And so did the well of juice that you were giving for decades.
Yeah.
And for women listening, it's like really tuning in to how your inner experience is mirrored on the outer. Like things in the body don't just happen for no reason. We aren't just one physical being, one emotional being, one energetic being. And I know, Shannon, you don't just work with the tissues, you also work with the energy. So can you talk a little bit about like, what is the energy field? And I know you and I are both like super woo, but also grounded as fuck. So like some women might not know anything about this, and just like ground us into that. What is the energy body?
So yeah, I'm super into energy. Energy informs
Double
matter.
Pisces here, people. Double Pisces.
Okay. Pisces, sun and moon on my midheaven between the ninth and 10th houses. So it is deep transformation in my career life as well, helping people through deep transformation. So energy informs matter. I also have a huge skeptic in me. And it took my teacher, Eileen Day McCusick, with biofield tuning, her book, Tuning the Human Biofield, to like really help it sink in for me in a way of physics. I need things understood in like science to really believe it, even though I'm psychic. So we have these currents that are everywhere around us. We're swimming in a sea of ether and plasma, and that becomes these toroidal fields. The plasma becomes these toroidal fields. This cool little example here that this is a torus and it collapses, but we have this energy that comes up from our feet, up from the earth, and it makes this upward flow of energy that forms this current up this way. And then the solar energy comes down and it forms this field around us. So we're there in the center. And this is our biofield, our aura. And it's pretty cool. It's constantly flowing. That's why like getting your bare feet on the earth is one of the best rituals you can do. It helps discharge. We have these, everything's magnetic and it discharges energy. Wearing leather soled shoes can help you too. If you're a highly sensitive person, you want to just like let that stuff go regularly. So anyways, we have this biofield and in it is our records of life. And so literally like a record on a record player, we have everything that we've ever experienced in life. The edge is birth. Present time is here in the center. And so when I'm listening to somebody's field, I listen with tuning forks. I can sense somewhere along the way of like, oh, at 10 years old, there was like a major entanglement of energy. And the story might come, or it just feels like depression, or it feels like a nervous system dysregulation. And so that the forks and the sound help that charge from that experience get unlocked from where it's been stored in the field and come back to the present. And so if you can imagine, we're walking around with all of these experiences as weights, and they're pulling us in all these directions subconsciously, right? And then some of them are so big that then they start to create a presence in the body. That's where the disease and discomfort show up. And so there's all these cords tied to past experiences. And when we do this work, when we do the somatic release and the frequency healing, we bring those parts of us back to center that have been like stuck managing past experiences. And so energy informs matter. It all starts out there. And this is the most dense piece. Our mind, our spirit is massive. And our mind thinks like, I'm done with that. I'm moving on. Why aren't you done, body? And then there's the emotional piece, but the body's slow and dense. It's like super dense, right? This is 3D matter. And so, in doing the healing work, we just have to be patient with the body to let it do its time. I have people go, 2, 3, sometimes more weeks than that between sessions with me, because it's like, let it unwind, let it fully do its thing. It's like with postpartum women, like give yourself a year before you're really like getting super physically active, because the body is coming back together and takes time.
And, I love that reminder because I have definitely been guilty before of intellectualizing my feelings. In fact, even, I've been doing therapy every week now for like a year and a half, and it's somatic therapy, IFS. Trying to get my therapist on the podcast. I'm shouting out to her right now to come on the podcast. And I show up to almost every session like, okay, I know what I'm going to work on. I'm pretty sure I've figured it out. So you're just lucky that I'm this kind of client because I've figured it out already. And what I realize is part of my survival mechanism is intellectualizing my feelings. It's like, if I figure it out, if I do enough research, if I put the pieces together, then I won't have pain anymore. And that's actually just not the case, because we can intellectualize our feelings, think about what happened to us as much as we want, but we can't think our way to healing. And that's a really hard lesson that can be quite frustrating when that figure it out part and those kind of manager parts that keep you tugging along and going, they bring you success in a lot of other areas of your life. But when it comes to actual integration and digestion and healing, you can't push yourself there mentally. It has to happen on a physical level. And it can take a lot longer for things to move through. And I was surprised one of the sessions that I had with you. So just coming back to the beginning of the podcast, when I first had my first session with Shannon, she was giving me all these compliments. And she knows exactly how to seduce a Leo sun. She was like, oh, your pelvic diaphragm is so great. It's so like, wow, it's so alive. Most postpartum women, I don't see this. And I'm like, keep talking to me. I'll come back to you for sure. And then we kind of realized through working together that I don't actually hold that much tension in my pelvic diaphragm. Like, sure, it'll show up there from time to time. And so in those sessions, I left your office feeling like the most accomplished woman in the world. I was like, if everything else doesn't work out, my pelvic diaphragm is good. We're good here, people. And then, dun, 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 something came up for me, which is like, I feel like every single part of my pelvis is squished and squeezed in at this center part on my coccyx. Like all parts are being kind of brought into this center point of tension, of pressure right around my coccyx. And you were like, well, have you ever tried intraanal work? And I was like, I'm not in this context, Shannon. And so we went into that together, and we both collectively together found out that I have one of the tightest asses in the world. And it was so powerful. And I'll also say highly emotional to go into that place, because I found all these feelings and all these memories and all of these parts of myself that I thought I was really successful at hiding away. So successful that I myself didn't even really know that they were still there. And so we went into that. And I remember after that first intraanal session with you, I walked away feeling like I had just gotten a full body reset. Like my nervous system was so reset from the inside out. And I was walking through the world, just experiencing the world and interacting with people and the world around me in such a different way. So can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to be the only woman who has ever been inside of Just kidding, but tell me a little bit about that, please, and why intraanal work is medicinal. We were like, we're going to go into this. We have to make sure we don't say too many things. And I'm like, here we are. Let's do it, Shannon.
Pandora has a back door.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's the whole pelvic bowl, right? We're not just talking about the yoni. And for a lot of women, they don't realize it's an ass. Like I said, I was making diamonds in my sleep. And this is not uncommon. Do you find yourself like at the kitchen sink doing dishes and all of a sudden you realize your butt cheeks are clenched? Like that's a very common place. It's our sacral and root chakra there, where we hold our origin stories. We hold our truth about whether we trust the world, whether we feel safe, our money stories. So a lot is in that location, and in our sense of how we control the world.
Oh, yeah.
No control issues
Guilty.
there.
No, not at all.
And so, both places, vaginally and rectally, can benefit from presence and fascial unwinding. And also, even just injuries. How many of us have fell on our tailbone, our coccyx, and had an injury there? For me personally, when I received my first session, there was so much scar tissue around my coccyx. And shame. I'd been injured in 8th grade. Family stuff was shitty then, and couldn't go to a doctor. Just really left, untreated, and carried that scar tissue for decades. And when it finally released, I had a whole healing crisis. I couldn't really walk very well for a couple of days, but then it melted all this tension that was stored there. And so, yeah, it's, as above, so below, you were speaking to. It's are you carrying tension in your jaw? Are you carrying tension around the base of your neck? Then you probably want to look at your root. And anything can mirror, any part of our body can mirror what's going on elsewhere. But the rectum is a beautiful place to look if you're a very controlling person, and it might feel like the most awkward experience ever to let somebody in there. Maybe you've never even done that with your partner. But I do create a very safe container. We go very slow. We use lots of lube and a glove, and just allow just that whole unwinding from the very root of you to just slowly melt, and it just will melt the entire body.
I love that. And it's funny because as you talk to me, there's protector parts that I have that are I'm not controlling at all. If you compare me to some women that I know, I'm not controlling at all. And then I remember when I started to get that feeling. So first of all, I'm totally controlling in ways I'm not even conscious of, as we all are. But I remember that sensation around my coccyx and sacrum that was all drawing into this center point of tension. It really started right after I gave birth to my daughter. And I remember the hemorrhoids I had after birth. I'm just really going for it today. The hemorrhoids I had after birth were more painful than birth itself. And I remember after giving birth to my daughter at home being and now somehow I have to poop? This just feels so unfair, so ridiculous. And, my daughter had a hard first month of life. We had a hard go postpartum. I had breastfeeding issues. I had really bad postpartum depression, just a really riveting first 6 months together. And I had to, or so I thought, control every little detail for her survival. And that survival instinct of if I control it, I will be okay was so imprinted in my tissues. And I've had a few great moments of awakening since becoming a mom. That anal work session was one with you. Another was just a few months ago going to a yoga nidra retreat, and yoga nidra is deep rest. Nidra is sleep. And it's I was the most relaxed I've ever been. And coming out of those experiences, there's so much grief there because I realized I have been in pure survival. And in that, all of that is held right there in my anus. I'm not even trying to control. I just think that if I don't, I won't survive. I won't be okay. And it's how many women have done that since we were kids? If I don't please, I won't be taken care of. If I don't peacemake, I won't be okay. If I don't do this for my mom or do this for my dad or this for my siblings, my family will fall apart. And so much of that is held right there. It's the root. It's the origin. It's where we come from. And it's all happening there sometimes without even our awareness. I would like to think I'm pretty in my pelvis, and yet here I was just really cut off from my body for years. And so that's another question I have. I remember I was 3 months postpartum, and you know my birth story, it was challenging. And I went on a walk for the first time without my daughter. And I got this like hit of like, oh my God, right now I'm feeling my pelvis for the first time in like 3 months. That same day I went home and I did a yoga posture, and it was the same position that I gave birth in. And I just had a huge release of grief of that memory. And a lot of women listening have that total walling off. It's like you said, Pandora's box. And I get that a lot with women in my courses of like, I ask them, go into your pelvis. And they're like, what the heck do you even mean?
Yeah.
Or what is held there? And there's so much numbness, or there's such a resistance to even go into that place. So you talked about the womb and heart coherence, but what about that initial resistance that comes up for women of like, I don't even want to go there?
Well, you know, what we resist persists is all I can say. And we have to go there at some point. If you don't go there now, then it'll just get louder somehow. You know, I think about, as you're talking, like the first place is our breath diaphragm, our diaphragm under our lungs. And what are we all taught to do? Suck our stomachs in.
Oh, yeah.
We don't even have permission to be in our core, in our organs. So how could you have permission to really fully land in your pelvis? And so it starts with reorienting to letting that diaphragm free and letting your breath like drop. Like most people don't know how to let their breath drop into their pelvis. It just lives above the diaphragm here. And so start with belly massage, right? Like you don't even have to go to the pelvis first. Start with massaging your belly every day a little bit and just saying, I love you. How many women love their bellies?
Oh, yeah.
Or your breasts. Just like start here and bring love. And, you know, our tissues respond. We're so much water. And you've seen all the experiments online of water responding to certain words. And so start there and bring some nice like rose oil or something in. And I love you. Thank you, breasts. Thank you, belly. Thank you, organs, for digesting. And then we work our way down. We get more comfortable, right? So just go slow. My belief is if the entire world massaged their bellies for 10 minutes a day, we'd have world peace. Because it's so much is stored here that never gets addressed. So begin at your core and then let that a presence and dropping in spiral down. And the more you get comfortable with loving your body, the more deeper you'll be able to go. And, you know, like you said, you and I are both very aware of our bodies, feel we're embodied, but yet we find these places where there's tension still. Like I'm realizing, I think my booty's clenching a little bit even right now.
Yeah.
And so like, it's just that constant, like we can do these body scans and check-ins. Okay, just like take a few minutes, breathe. Where am I holding something? And it's as simple as that. We don't have to go into like, oh my God, I'm so scared of what's in the basement. We'll just breathe and let some tension go. And when your body's ready, it'll share stories if it wants to.
And I think about that, you know, when I look at goddesses in ancient cultures, like ancient Greece, ancient Mesopotamia, it's like you see these women with like full, abundant bellies. That was the representation of fertility, is having a little pooch over your uterus. Like I got one, and I'm like, as you're saying, don't suck it in. I'm like, you're right. Because there's such a strong holding pattern in my body. I think I've been sucking in my belly since I was like 7 or 8 years old. I have that memory of like, suck it in, suck it in, suck it in, be smaller, be smaller. And we're in this culture that's always telling women, be smaller, be more digestible, be more palatable. And that kind of sucking in of our physical bodies, our energy bodies, our desires, our needs, it creates a holding pattern in our system. And when we look at these like ancient fertility representations, it's women who have that plumpness in their belly, enough fat in their body to be ovulating, to be fertile. And it's so different than what we see walking down, you know, the runways now and kind of coveted on social media as the archetype of ultimate femininity. And so For women who are afraid to go into that, and you just name that, but for women who are going into their pelvis, but when they get there, they feel numbness, or when they're touching themselves and they feel numbness, or slowly over the years, their sensation has gone down. How do you work with numbness?
It's a pretty common one that I see in my office. So I've told you about the heart womb breath, but I call it the heart pussy breath. And so one hand over the heart, one over the pubic bone. And that's a great one to do for 5 to 10 minutes. And we just breathe in one breath in and out at each place and be with it. And if that feels, like a new concept to some people, you kind of just with your imagination, send the breath to each place back and forth. That's creating our hands and our connection to our body, create the circuitry. And so just that alone can start to bring more energy flow there. Another practice that I'm a firm believer in is pelvic mapping. This is created by the sexological body workers. It's doing little massage around the yoni. You start in you spiral and you start in the outer areas, your thighs, the groin, and then the labia, and you just kind of go in a clock around the clock, and you can do little circular motions. You can hold, you can stretch, but basically you're creating circuitry and flow and circulation enhancement to that area. So a lot of the numbness is just there's no attention going there. And when we take that power back for ourselves, we make that connection. We don't, it's not for your partner to do. That being held is nice, being held by a practitioner is nice, but we really have to do it ourselves because, most of the time we're just giving this place away, right? So if you want to feel connected and you want to feel connected to your pleasure, to your erotica, it's about daily presence there. So you don't have to do that massage, pelvic mapping every day, but try it once a week, try it a couple times a month. If you're really gung-ho, yeah, you can do it every day. This is what they do in de-armoring is the pelvic mapping. They bring in toys. It's just getting you connected to your tissues. So that's where I say to start. And, the mapping piece, ideally, we're teaching this to our pubescent girls or even younger. And then we're doing it through our lives so that when we go to the doctors because something's going on, we know what our tissues are, not this person seeing us, maybe the first time or maybe once every few years. We know, and we know through our entire life what our tissues are like and how they change.
I love that. I teach pelvic floor mapping inside of Womb Sciences, which is inside of Liberated Womb. And so many women, hundreds of them, well, actually over 5,000 now have gone through that course. And so much can arise in pelvic mapping. And one of the things that I'm really curious about and happened to me is for the first 5 years of being sexually active, I barely touched myself at all. I didn't have an orgasm for 5 years. I had no idea how to explore my body, the pleasure pathways, nothing. And so there was so much pressure on my partner to figure that out. And so much disconnection between myself and that part of my body. And a lot of the women who go through that in Liberated Womb, they're like, I haven't even inserted my finger yet. And there's so much coming up for me. And I just want to reiterate how empowering it is to create this relationship with your vulva, with your vagina, with your pussy, with your breasts, with your tissue in your body, so that as you said, when something is shifted, you're the first one who knows.
Yeah.
Versus going in for a year checkup, which often is so based in fear of I'm going to check you now to see if you have disease.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't
Looking
be
for a problem.
Exactly. Who wouldn't be afraid of that? And, I come from a family that's because of medical trauma, kind of afraid of doctors. So of course I went the Eastern medicine route, and I have that. And especially in the past, trepidation before a pap smear, trepidation before a physical exam. And now that I've created that relationship with my body, it's I'm the first one who knows. if something has shifted. And that's the shift to be sovereign, to be undomesticated, to be a cycle breaker. Is like, we're not putting that responsibility on a partner, on a doctor to tell us what's going on. We're changing our life by leading from within. And so for women who can't come and be with you in person, what are some ways that they can start this process of supporting their pelvic bowls, reconnecting with their feminine vitality? Like, how can people work with you, Shannon?
Yeah, so I have an online series, Vital Woman Embodiment Wellness, and we take 5 weeks and go through different self-care experiences that I love to teach, I love my clients to do. We go over yoni steaming, pelvic mapping, abdominal massage, energetics of the pelvic bowl. And so that's happening. I do that a few times a year. And people can also work with me privately online through that series, and also just anytime. And, when we work online together, we do a lot of energetic clearing, and I help you really like take back that power, and I guide you through your own belly massage and internal vaginal release. So both really potent ways to work with me. It's just so important that we take this back, when you're talking about giving away your power to your partner and expecting them to know your body and your pleasure centers. We have to know our pleasure centers. It starts within, just like that daily ritual of resilience starts within. So, yeah. Take back your power, women.
Take back your power, women. Thank you so much, Shannon, for coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with me. I was telling Christina, who's helping us film here, I was like, Shannon has the sexiest voice. Just wait. She's going to seduce us with her voice. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your voice and your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you, Usha. It was such a delight. I love you.
Love you too. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Womben Wellness Podcast. If this episode touched you in some way, it would mean so much if you could subscribe and download this episode. If you want to learn more about my work, you can go to wombenwellness.com or come say hi on Instagram, send me a message, and tell me what you loved about the show.